The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about making your life more delicious. And I'm Rob Rosenthal, your host, coming to you on the 10th day of November in the year of 2021. Really super glad to be with you here this evening. It's episode number 117 of All You Can Eat. And my excitement today comes from the fact that I have spent 45 minutes in conversation with a guy named CHAD BELDING, which I am going to play for you in a moment. I was introduced to CHAD, and as I'm introduced, by the way, to many people, products, places, etc., and I saw the introduction to CHAD, and I thought, you know, this guy looks really interesting to me. But as I told CHAD himself, part of what made his background interesting, which I'm going to tell you about in a second, is that I couldn't think of anybody of the first 116 episodes of All You Can Eat. I couldn't think of anybody that was more different, had a more kind of completely different background from the one that I did. I mean, on the podcast, for those of you who listen periodically, I mean, I've had chefs, obviously, I've had restaurateurs, I've had journalists, I've had editors, I've had, celebrities, all of whom I think I felt like naturally, on the subject of food and cooking and traveling and that kind of thing, that I had some kind of obvious connection with. Now, CHAD, don't get me wrong. I mean, he and I are going to talk about food, but CHAD is an outdoorsman from Nevada, from the great state of Nevada. And he is a guy who is a hunter, and he is connected to kind of nature and sustainability and food, and moreover has spent so far 13 seasons. They're in their 14th season. He's the host of a show on the Outdoor Channel called the Fowl Life, Fowl. This guy, I got to be honest with you, so impressive. It was such a treat to have a conversation with him. I liked him so much. And I think he's quite brilliant, frankly. So at the end, even though, and I'll come back after the conversation with CHAD, but at the end, I mean, he's from the other side of the country, up there in Nevada, and spent his life outside. I mean, I am literally a native New Yorker, and very New York. In spite of the fact that I, have traveled for many years extensively and professionally, as has CHAD. We have that in common as well. I just thought, well, this is going to be interesting because I'm fascinated by what he does and how he does it, and that whole life around being outside and hunting. And I have no, I have no prejudice. I have no preconception. I am not a fan of people that go out and they hunt wild game because they want to collect their tusks like a trophy. I thought that's kind of disgusting. This is a totally different ball game. CHAD is out there, shooting and hunting for, whether it's fish or whether it's fowl or whatever it is, for animals whose population need to be controlled, and who have deep respect for what it is that they are hunting and how they use it and how it basically helps nature through sustainability, etc., etc. Anyway, we'll get to all of that with CHAD BELDING. And then when that's over, I will come back and we'll chat just a little bit more. Okay, here's my talk with CHAD BELDING. Hey, first of all, Chad, a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for spending the time.
I truly appreciate you having me on. Nice to meet you.
No, it's just exciting for me because, I'm going to give you a little insight into the way things work. I get, as a journalist type person, even though I'm not a traditional journalist, I get, a lot of stuff that comes through in the email. And it's like, hey, how about this? How about this? How about this? And I can afford to be selective. The stuff that intrigues me, I go, yeah, that could be interesting. So when I saw Justin sent through something about you in the book and whatever, I go, you know what, that could be interesting to me. But here's the funny part of the story, Chad. I mean, if it's funny, I've done 116 episodes, hour-long episodes of All You Can Eat, and they're with people like authors and restaurateurs and journalists and celebrity chefs. And I was thinking when I read your background, I've never done one with someone that I was as far away from. I don't mean physically. I know you're out west. We'll talk about that. But like, I feel like I had something in common with 100 of the people that I've interviewed so far. You and I come from such opposite ends of the spectrum that it's fascinating to me. I can't wait to hear about your life. I'm telling you that as a guy that was born in New York City, and to this day lives half a mile out my bedroom window. I'm looking at the hospital that I was born in. So I mean, I'm very New York, if you know what I'm saying.
I like it. I like New York.
And I want to say that, am I finding you in, and I want to say it right, am I finding you in Nevada?
Yes, sir. Reno, Nevada, Reno, Tahoe. We're getting ready to hit the road to Wisconsin to partake in some outdoor activities up there for season 14 of the Fowl Life. And so, yeah, I know what you're saying. You come from different backgrounds, but we've built a lot of our brands on that mindset that the outdoors, whether it's hunting, fishing, whether it's gardening, it's kind of the common denominator that brings a lot of different walks of life together. So I've hunted with janitors to military fighter pilots to 3- and 4-star admirals to country music stars and professional athletes and surgeons and ophthalmologists and you name it, we've hunted. And that's what I love about the outdoors is because you can get to know somebody so intimately in such a hurry in a duck blind or at deer camp. And we all are very humbled and honored to be part of Mother Nature like that. And we have compassion for the animals we pursue. And we're just a lot of respect for the resource. So I think when you have all of those beliefs and that kind of fabric, it's really easy to know if somebody will get along with you or if they'll be interested in some of your life stories. And I love the fact that, through hunting, our culinary background has kind of diversified us and we're able to talk to people like you, and Justin gets to go out and kind of tell our story to individuals like you that you're self-admittingly saying that you've never really talked or had anything in common, or you don't have anything in common with me as opposed to most of your guests.
Yeah, but that's what makes it fascinating for me. In fact, we have a lot of stuff to cover because, 14 seasons of anything is amazing to me. But I like to always start, and food, we're going to talk about food because that's my favorite subject. We are on a podcast called All You Can Eat. So that is one thing that is totally in common. Tell me what it's like, though, growing up for you in Nevada. Like, what's your childhood like? What do you, obviously there's a lot of outdoor activity and you're going out with your dad and what are you eating and what are you sporting? Tell me what life is like growing up out there.
My mom and dad got married young, that generation before me. They graduated in the early 70s from high school and they were high school sweethearts. My mom was 14, my dad was 16, and they end up dating and then getting married. My mom has 3 boys, myself, my brother Clint, my brother Clay, by the time she's 22 years old. So like that in itself makes me look back at, like, I can't have anything but compassion for my mom of knowing the difficulties that must have brought on. At the same time, my dad's a union plumber. When he passed away, he had been married for 34 and a half years and a union plumber for over 35 years. And my mom put herself through nursing school while raising 3 boys and graduated in 1985 with a registered nursing degree, and then went on to get her master's and become a nurse practitioner. And she's just had that focus and dedication to oncology and cancer. So, growing up, it was my mom and dad dedicated their entire lives to us. And I don't know how they did it because I see parents today when I'm in my 40s now, like they're living that lifestyle of the minivan and they're running kids to this practice and this dance recital and this conference and this and that. And I have a daughter and I have a nephew, and my daughter's busy too with volleyball and jiu-jitsu and a bunch of different activities. So looking back on my childhood, knowing that they took the time to dedicate to us at the same time and being very focused on their own careers. I mean, they were at every game. They took us to the mountains. We were in lakes. We were fly fishing. We were following my dad in the Deer Mountains and the Chucker Partridge Mountains. And we were learning, really, it taught me the importance of knowing where our food came from, because my mom and dad are both very good cooks. My mom's of Italian descent. My grandpa Carmen Filippone was first generation American. He lived in Steubenville, Ohio, where my mom was born. It's referred to as Little Italy. His best friend growing up, and I know this sounds far-fetched, but his name was Dino Cricchesi, and my grandpa used to go to amateur nights in Ohio with Dino Cricchesi, who later on moved to Vegas. My grandpa moved to Nevada with him to become Dino Martino, and then Dean Martin.
That's a great. So, that's great.
So my grandpa Filippone and that Italian descent, I learned at a young age that my mom could cook really good gravies and sauces and awesome pastas and gnocchi and all this stuff. And then my dad, on the wild game side of things and the gardening side of things, it was always fresh vegetables, and it was always deer or fish or chucker or some kind of fowl. And I learned the importance of what food does. And when I go to Italy, and through the years, my mom and dad would take us to visit our family over there in different parts of Sardinia and different parts of the mainland. And I learned what food meant. And that in different parts of the country, it wasn't as fast paced as our lives were. And it meant that every meal people got together and they socialized. And that's what I love about what my dad taught me in hunting camp and what my mom and dad taught me growing up, is that it was time for us to talk and to know that mom went through this during the day and that dad did this and Clay got this on his report card and Chad did this in the baseball game. And we got away from that for a long time. And I think that a lot of families still do with the run and gunning approach of life. And I think that, to go along with that, and I'll end it by saying this, is that if there's anything positive that came out of the last 18 months with the pandemic and COVID, is that it got a lot of us back to our roots in our backyard and our tables, and knowing that how important that socialization and what food and culinary means. So I do love great food. I love great wild game. I love traditional Italian feasts. I love Asian and sushi, but I also love what culinary means, and to the socializing and to really getting to know somebody and enjoying a good glass of Chardonnay or Merlot over an elk backstrap and getting to know somebody. And I think that that's what my mom and dad really taught me through childhood.
Well, I'll tell you something. It's great, and it's impressive the way that your parents raised you. I can totally relate to the Italian piece of it. I with my own family was over in Italy a month ago. We spent a couple of weeks, and the one thing that continues to impress me about Italy is exactly what you said. It's not only the respect for the food and for the table, but it's the meal is an it's what do they call it? Like a slow food, like you gotta, hey, chill, everybody. We're going to be at the table for the next 2-3 hours, and we're going to be with each other. And I think that everything that you said is right. I have enormous respect for the way that that the Italian culture just kind of reveres food and the opportunity for the family, to be together. But that's a great story, and everything you said kind of resonates with me, including, by the way, I 1,000% agree that one of the positive things that came out of the pandemic is exactly what you said. It gave people a rare opportunity to kind of reassess, what was important and what matters and how you spend your time.
I think it does. And going back to Italy for a second, you start with the salad and you go into into all of the, it doesn't matter what it is. I can go on and on about Italian culinary stuff, but when you think it's over, then you got the homemade gelato, then you got the limoncello, and then you think that's over. And then you got the grappa, and you're just like, holy smokes. Like, these people actually care about talking to one another, and in a world now of instant messaging and direct messaging and text messaging and social media, it's so easy to be unauthentic about our approach in life. And when I'm over there, I learned really fast of, like, they really, really, really care, and they continuously hang on to what you say, and they take that as gospel. I'm not trying to bring religion into it, but they live in the land of the Vatican and the Pope and all of the part of Catholicism and all that. But they also understand that socializing and language, the love language of Italy, and learning how to speak English, or us learn how to speak, they understand that is so important to them. And I learned that in Italy at a young age, that they actually take the time to get to know somebody through conversing. And the old country, they call it, is that for a reason to me, is that I want to get back to that. And that's what food does to me in my lifestyle of hunting camp. Because most of our hunting camps, we don't have cell service. And when I'm in the woods, I understand what it means to be alone. So when COVID came up and we couldn't leave our house and we had to have solitude, I'm a hunter. I'm used to that. Right. I'm used to being alone and being quiet and understanding my thoughts. But that mixed with Italy and the culinary, mixed with the mindset that I can hone my skill set to live off the land like my mom and dad taught me, I was ready for something like COVID. Italy prepared me for that because I could talk to my family and be getting along with them in my backyard. Italy prepared me to put together the best possible meal or bounty that I could for my friends and family. And then on top of that, my freezers were full of wild game meat that my neighbors were able to be rewarded with off of my efforts and my family's efforts of being a hunter. When the stores were out of beef and pork and chicken and even Spam, they were coming to my house to borrow elk burger and deer backstrap and venison and antelope and trout and halibut and ducks and geese. And so I was able to share that, and it showed me that, look, all of that comes full circle. It's all about sustainability, from the old country of Italy and the farming practices that I learned over there and the cooking methods and culinary art over here to hunting and gathering and understanding what it means to live off the land and be a farmer, be a rancher, to understand the respect for that resource and the compassion for the animals. I was looking at it like, man, it all comes together. And now I'm able to share my hunting legacy that my dad and the men before him taught my brothers and I. And then we continuously learn every day to teach our kids and their friends that there is something different about living off of the land and knowing exactly where your squash or your zucchini or your protein came from.
Chad, I just want to be really clear about this. I want to be your friend. That's all I want to say.
Yes, sir. I want to be yours.
I want to be your friend. No, seriously, I hear everything that you're saying, and I agree 1,000%. I suppose, it's funny because whether it's Italy or Ireland, I have to laugh. People, here in this country, people talk about the farm to table movement. I mean, in Italy and Ireland, they've been doing farm to table for like 500 years. This is not a new thing. This is what people did and what they do. Tell me about, though. As we segue into food, and I don't want to forget the fact that I'm blown away that anybody can do 14 seasons of anything. So I'll get to the show in a second, but just on the food thing, Chad, the respect. Oh, do you know Dario Cecchini, the famed kind of butcher of Italy? Does his name ring a bell?
His name? Oh yeah, I know who he is, but I've never met him. No.
Well, no, but fine. I mean, we went to his place, and all I could say is, part of his story involves the deepest respect for the animal. That's why head to tail. That's why every single piece of it, nothing wasted, nothing misused. So you I assume that you grew up doing all this kind of stuff. You consume every piece of all of these animals, yes? And do you kill and dress them and do whatever you have to do all yourself? You do all of that stuff, I assume, right?
100%. Now we have butchers in our family. My godfather, Lauren Biglieri, who's one of the most Italian men I've ever met. He's been a huge mentor to me. But Lauren Biglieri, who's my godfather, is a professional butcher. And I want to start off my answer by saying that I don't get jealous and I don't get envy. I think that those are two things that absolutely kill the mental and the emotional fabric of any community or society or family or friendship or relationship. But I'm very envious of butchers and good butchers that can run a knife and that can make short work of whatever animal it is. And yes, I believe in understanding the anatomy of an animal. And I believe in understanding different cultures, like you mentioned, Ireland or Italy or the Basque country of Spain.
Right.
We have a huge Basque settlement in this part of the United States where I live. So I grew up on eating the adrenal gland or the thymus gland.
The thymus, yeah.
Called sweet bread.
Yeah.
I grew up eating tongue. I grew up eating brain. I grew up eating tripe and the stomach lining of a cow.
Yep.
So from a very early age, what was put on our plate, we were expected to eat. And we've gotten away from that too, because now it's so easy for parents to be like, oh, it's okay. You don't have to eat it. I worked my whole life to be able to afford this food, but go ahead and just eat cereal for dinner. And I don't like that mentality. So my mom and dad taught us that if we put it in front of you, we want to do our best to make it taste good. But I have been to, in this, I don't mean to bring up a subject that people might go, wow, what is he talking about? But I've eaten cavallo in Italy many times.
Sure.
And people look at horse as a delicatessen in Italy, and it's beautifully mastered food and culinary art if done right. Just like beef tongue is over here in the Basque Country. People go, you don't tongue. I go, so my point is, we try to eat every part, and we do all of our butchering, all of our processing. We will render all of our duck fat, our goose fat, so we can use it throughout the year. We take care of all of the vacuum sealing, the grinding, the mixing, all of the pork fat added to anything that we might not use as a steak, and we want to take a piece of a roast and make it into burger or chorizo or Italian sausage, mild, sweet, hot, whatever you want to do. We've learned to do that on our own. So the reason I say that is to say this. I think that there's so much to be said about taking something off of a shelf and knowing what you're getting ready to do with it. And that could be acquired in land as a farmer. We're only a farmer for a while. We pass that land on to somebody else. They put it back up on the shelf, and that farmer, his goal or her goal in life is to leave that land manicured perfectly. So when the next farming family comes in, whether it's ancestral or a new family, they look at that land and go, holy smokes, this was a well taken care of piece of land. So when I go into my freezer and I look at my vacuum sealed steaks and tongue and brain, and I got all of the bones and the marrow because of soups and everything that we make with it. Sure. I want to have the feeling of, we did this. We took the time to do this right. We didn't waste any part of this animal. And now my kids and their friends and my family and my mama and everybody that comes over here are going to enjoy it because we took that pride. And I think a lot of people go through the motions so much when they look at something like, it's just, oh, it's quick fix. I mean, how many commercials are on TV now to where you can get a prepared meal with one push of a button, Dine and Dash, or not Dine and Dash, but Grubhub or whatever it's called. And then all these companies that are sending the meals for you to pop in your oven and cook. That's fine if that's what life has become. But I have taken so much pride and passion that knowing that when we take that off the shelf and we butcher or we process or we cook and we put it back clean after we spend hours cleaning all of our instruments or whatever we're doing, that I want to be able to look at everybody in the room and go, we did our best and we did not cut corners and that meal was perfect. I might not be Bartoli, I might not be Wolfgang Puck, but I want people to look at it and go, man, that was a great meal because it was planned out with a lot of love and passion. And that, going back to the beginning of this conversation, is what Luciano Domenici in the town of Moravera on the southeast coast of the island of Sardinia in Italy taught me. I watched that man for hours cook a meal that was devoured. Different segments of his meals would be devoured in a matter of seconds because it was so good, but he spent hours and sometimes days preparing them. And that's what that whole mindset is. It doesn't matter how long, we're going to do it right, and we're going to put every bit of love and passion we have into it.
I'm with you 100% again, and I love talking to you. I will have you know, for what it's worth, that my grandfather, one of my four grandparents who actually came from Russia, spent his life as a butcher. And so my grandfather is a butcher. I mean, I didn't know when he came to our apartment each week to deliver a box full of meat, and they opened up the brown butcher paper, and there was this, they called it in my family chopped meat. It was the steak that had been ground. And the first thing, I'm 2 years old, the first thing that we did when he came in, we opened the brown butcher paper, put a little bit on our finger of this chopped meat with a touch of salt. And I was eating steak tartare when I was 2 years old. Who knew? You know what I mean? Just knew I liked it. I'll eat every single piece of every animal. I'm good with that. But I find basically that people are afraid, and and I think part of what they're afraid of is the way it sounds. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm in Italy a month ago, and in Florence, they're serving the chopped up stomach lining, the tripe, tripa, you know, and I'm telling you something, man. It's melt in your mouth, gorgeous food. There's no part. I'll eat the brains. I'll eat the, in Brazil, you're eating hearts. I love eating the liver. I have no problem eating any part of any animal. But most people, man, most people are desperately afraid of shit. And I'm not even talking about the entrails. We don't eat enough in this country of like things like rabbit and frog. I mean, I went to French cooking school. Why are we not eating rabbit and frog here?
One of the best experiences, I keep going back to Italy. I was in Verona for nighttime opera and went into a restaurant that one of my friends knew there. And there was this poster from Bevande Verona, which is like a distribution company that, like over here, it'd be like somebody that distributes Budweiser or Coca-Cola somewhere. Well, it was an Italian distribution company. And it's like a rollout. It's like an Asian kind of, like a fan material, like bamboo, but it rolls out and it's really nice. And it's got this a strap that you hang it by. But on that Bevande Verona was 2 ducks flying. I met 2 mallards. So anatra in Italian is duck, and
right.
Cacciatore is hunter. So right. I was the anatra, Cacciatore, and all this stuff. And I was inquisitive about why were the ducks on there. So I started a conversation with the chef, and he ends up giving me this rolled out thing. I could walk out and show it to you in my studio. It's one of my pride and joys in life. I've kept it, and I've had it for well over 15 years. But the moral of the story was we were eating pasta with rabbit and venison in it. Yes. And the chef going over his preparation of these rabbits, farm-raised rabbits, if you will. And just a month ago, I was with the Particelli family, and I want you to look this company up. I've done many talks with Michael Politz of Food and Beverage Magazine and the founder of Food and Beverage. I introduced him to this family, the Particelli family in Napa, California. They own a company called Napa Valley Olive Oil. The main chef in the family is Stefano, the oldest son. His dad, Ray, is the owner. His mom is from Italy. She came over here from the old country. I eat with her a lot. They're very good friends with Francis Ford Coppola. They live right by him and his winery. And I could go on the list of celebrities that this woman has cooked for. She's 89 years old. She barely speaks any English. But I was telling you this is that I just did a recipe with them of a sardine recipe and a rabbit recipe. And these were wild rabbits, cottontail rabbits off the California coast. And I sat there and watched these Italians prepare these in their mom's kitchen. And I asked that question that you just stated. Why don't we eat more rabbit? Why are we not seeing this in more restaurants? Because every single bite that day, I literally was like in heaven. I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally the finest piece of meat you could put in your mouth. And it was almost like they knew it. They knew what I was getting ready to experience with this out. And you always know that with Italians because they're always so giving with their food because it's more social to them. They've eaten enough. They've eaten all the food they ever want to eat because that's all they do is cook and eat. So I was watching them and they're really not eating it. And I found out why. They wanted me to enjoy it. Absolutely. And they knew I would want seconds. That is the coolest thing to know, that you're getting ready to indulge in this rabbit that gave up its life to supply food and people might have a question with that. Well, why don't you just eat a cow? Well, do me a favor and go watch how cows are slaughtered across the United States to provide you with a hamburger at Wendy's or McDonald's or whatever your choice is. I'm not against the beef world. I just want to know where my beef comes from. So we've started our own company in California called American Almond Beef. And we'll get into that. But I want people to understand the story of our steers and our cattle and how ethically they're treated and what they go through in their life and how we finish them and the pride we take and the compassion we show them of feeding our family this very special form of beef that we know what's being put into it through our subsidies and through the food and the feed that we feed these cattle. So all of that said was, yes, why aren't we knowing where our food comes from? Rabbit is amazing. Frog legs, when I go to Louisiana and watch a pot of gumbo being made or watch frog legs done the right way to where you're not just battering them and deep frying them all the time, I would put frog legs up against anything when tenderized the right way and prepared the right way. They're amazing meat.
Yeah, not only that, by the way, but I think here's the point that I make about people's fear of food. It's conceptual, it's emotional. It's like, honestly, if we made frog legs like the French do, right, and you didn't tell somebody what they were eating, they would go, what is this? It's frog. It's amazing. But they hear frog, and the next thing you know, it's I don't eat frog. It's the same thing with it. All like I have people that go to me, how do you eat sea urchin or octopus or all of these things? I'm just not. But is there something you don't eat? Because I on a recent trip to Mexico, I owed it to myself in a professional kind of way to have the what do they call those? The like the grass, like the fried grasshoppers, and there was some worm salt. Like, is there stuff that you don't want to put in your mouth?
I'll eat those all day long if they're done right. But you just mentioned one that I cannot figure out why. It's not my psyche, because I'll taste it, and I've tasted it, is sea urchin. I cannot figure out why I don't like, because I'll eat octopus like it's going out of style, whether cooked or raw, all the time. But
Same.
there's something about urchin that I've never. I don't get into it, and I'm not saying that it's a bad meat. It's just that I have not acquired a taste for it.
What about clams and oysters and that kind of stuff?
It's not like going out of style. I could eat oysters on the half shell if hopefully we're a part of catching them. But if I know the restaurant or the seafood distribution that we're getting them from, I love raw oysters. I love. There's a company in Louisiana. If you look it up, it's a military-based company that donates a lot of their proceeds back to oceanography and the study and to keep oysters growing. It's called the oyster bed. Look it up and just look at just the design that went into their different products. I cook with them all the time, whether I'm doing scallops or oysters or clams, whether I'm doing quail breast or chucker breast. It's a great piece of equipment to have in your culinary arsenal. But as far as like not eating something, I go back to what you just said. The mindset is like, oh my God, this is good. This is good. Well, that's deer. And they spit it out. I'm like, wait, you just told me for 10 minutes that it's good.
I don't
like,
know.
What does that tell you? Why does that, it should register the other way of like, oh my gosh, I'm broadening my horizons here. I'm eating a frog leg. Well, here's what happened to me in COVID. I cook up this meat and everybody's like, well, what is this? And I said, that's a Miriam's turkey from Colorado. What do you mean a Miriam's turkey? I said, well, there's 4 different species of turkeys in North America. You have the Rio Grande, the Miriam's, the Eastern, and then in the state of Florida, you have the Osceola. It's the only state that has the Osceola. In the world, you also have other ones like the Ocellated in Cancun, Mexico, or the Golds in Sonora, Mexico. So the World Slam is those 6. But in the continental United States, we have 4. I said, well, that's a Miriam's turkey that we called in the state of Colorado and harvested him during the spring turkey season. And this guy was like, this is a wild turkey? And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, tell me more. So this education process started. I tell you that to tell you this is that there's 10% of people in this country that hunt. There's 10% of the people in this country that are against hunting. There's 80% out there that just don't know. They're just like, what are you talking about? You called this turkey in. They've lived in New York City maybe their whole life, and they've never been outside of the city. They grew up in San Francisco and didn't know that just 20 minutes north in Fairfield in the Suisun Marsh that there's some of the best duck hunting in the world. They never knew this. They didn't know that for the late 1800s and the early 1900s that commercial duck hunting fed most of the Asian and Italian restaurants in the Bay Area that Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. sang about. So if you could just educate them of like, yes, this is how I killed these frogs. This is how I got this gator. This is why we gator hunt. There's management of this population. If we don't control and manage the population, then they're going to run rampant. They're going to develop diseases. They're going to die off. There's all kinds of study. My point is, vote and think scientifically and not always with your emotions. If you vote that this deer tastes good, don't emotionally go to Bambi. Go to the science of why we harvest deer and what conservation measurements are taken into consideration by hunters alike all over the world, that deer is important to manage. So I'm not getting on a soapbox. I just think that a lot of people have it in their head that if it's killed, I can't eat it. But they don't understand how their pork chops got there. And that's the crazy part about it, is that it's an education process. And that's what I want to do as a hunter, my man, is I want to educate people. You might hate me for what I do, but at least go to that voting box with an education and not just vote with your heart and your emotions all the time.
Well, for one, I mean, I love you for what you do, so don't worry about that. But I want to say, before I get into the show and the book, since you mentioned wild turkey and oysters, if you're sucking down oysters, what are you drinking with it? What's your drink of choice?
Well, I'm a whiskey guy. I'm a big Jack Daniels guy, and I have been my whole life. Not just that we work with them, but when I'm eating when I'm eating seafood, I like different types of wine, but I really honestly I like Japanese beer, and I like sake when I have different forms of oysters. And so people might look at me like, why? I go, I just like the way that it's like ginger, sake, and oysters just go together for me.
Yeah, I hear you. Because yes, that's good. That's a very good call. All right, now tell me this, Chad. The show is The Fowl Life on the Outdoor Channel. I believe you're in the process of shooting season 14, I want to say. How did you get into that line of work, and how have you managed to do 14 seasons of anything? That's super impressive, no?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I got into it through being a college baseball player and never really losing my competitiveness. I discovered duck hunting later in life at 27 years old, and the thing that brought me to it was the vocalizations and calling, and how you could literally speak to these animals, whether it's ducks or coyotes or geese or elk or deer. They have a vocabulary. My duck call company is called Jargon, Jargon. That's the specialized vocabulary amongst a group of people. So you being a culinary guy, you might go into a kitchen and be able to throw all these words around where people be like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. A fighter pilot or a pilot landing a plane talking to air traffic control. Me, I don't know what the heck they're saying, but it's their jargon, right? So I was turned on by the vocabulary of these wild animals, kind of like ESL or learning Italian or something. I want to be the best I can be at it. So that's what really I gravitated towards. So I started competing in duck and goose calling championships all over the country, in the worlds, the regionals, the internationals, and I had some success. I wasn't the best, but I was really competitive. And I what I learned through it is my network was starting to broaden. I was meeting all of these people outside of my home turf, if you will, of duck hunting, where, man, they do this on the Front Range in Colorado. This is going on in North Dakota. This is what's going on in Western Minnesota and Fargo, North Dakota. I was like, wow, this is vast. So that I got into it, and I started really, getting to know all these people. And one thing led to the next, to where I started to get some sponsors that came on and said, hey, we'll pay for your entry fees or your travel fees. You're doing good enough for that. And that turned me on to a guy named Fred Zink out of Port Clinton, Ohio. He lives up by Put-in Bay, and he's a badass when it comes to duck and goose, decoy carving, call making, just a real, and I don't want to throw the word genius around, but he's a waterfowl genius and guru. And he took me under his wing, and we started filming for his DVD series called 24/7. That leads to Ducks Unlimited out of Memphis, Tennessee. They sent one of their shows up called Ducks Unlimited's Water Dog that was on the Versus channel at the time. They met us in northern Saskatchewan, Canada, and we filmed 2 episodes with them for their TV show. Well, that led to the producer of that show, Shannon Nardi, called me and said, hey, you live out west. We've never filmed out west. Do you think you could help us? I said, heck yeah. So we went to Oregon, we went to Nevada, and we went to Idaho, and had a great 3 weeks of hunting together. And that's how the Fowl Life started. The producer of their show, Mike Devine, owned a production company in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He called me about 30 days after we left Idaho and said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a show around your personality? And I said, no, but I'd love to look into it. So we went to work on, with my network, going back to competition calling. I knew all these people, from Toyota to Sportsman's Warehouse to Avery to gun companies to ammo and all this. And I'm like, I wonder if they'd be interested. So the first name of the show was Dr. Duck. And I was going to write a prescription of success forever. And I'm like, who am I to think that I can write a prescription? Like I'm this MD of waterfowl. It sounded too tacky. But at the same time, in American pop culture, Paris Hilton and Lionel Richie's daughter, Nicole Richie, had a show called The Simple Life.
Right.
And so I said, I'm going to name a show called The Fowl Life. I called my intellectual property attorney. I said, try it. Started working on it. One thing leads to another. The producer of the company, Mike Devine's mom, gets ill. He has to put her in the Mayo Clinic, and he calls me and says, hey, man, my finances and my time are going to be strapped with my mom's health. I can't do this project anymore. And I said, Mike, do you mind if I do it on my own? And he says, no, man, good luck and keep me posted. And at that time, I was part owner in a portable toilet company. We were doing site services and street sweeping and stormwater pollution and erosion control. And we had toilets. We had 2,200 toilets in the state of Nevada. We grew it from 100 to 2,200 from 2003 to 2008. And I was in my toilet office, and in that office, I have a big mount. It's on a pedestal in the middle of the room. And it's these green-headed mallard ducks coming through flooded timber trees, that these trees are from the state of Arkansas that I got off of private property. And the title on the plaque is Strike Up the Band. and there's 9 banded greenheads, meaning the federal government puts a metal band on a duck's leg to follow their migratory routes. When one might harvest it, they report it. So I'm going to try to name a company Banded. So I called my same intellectual property attorney, Brian Hardy. I said, I want to try to get it. I said, we're not going to get it. It's so synonymous with waterfowl. We got it. And now if you look at bandedbrands.com, we started that in 2008. We have almost 4,000 products in the line now. But that started the Fowl Life. I went to work right there. We started Banded Productions, and we went to air the fall of 2009 with season 1 of the Fowl Life. On then, it was the Sportsman's Channel. We're now on the Outdoor Channel that owns the Sportsman's Channel. But the first episode goes to air, and here comes all these direct messages. Hey, what call are you blowing? What shirt are you wearing? What pants are you wearing? What four-wheeler are you driving? What boat are you in? I'm like, the money's not really in TV. The money's in manufacturing and product. And so that's how Banded was born. I'm like, we're going to go into the business of making product. We're going to start with T-shirts and hoodies and see how it goes. So at that time, it was UFC and Tap Out and Affliction. And it was all these, kids were into this full frontal design. So I wanted to take what Cabela's was selling, which was kind of old school, your dad's T-shirt. And I wanted to make these full frontal design T-shirts. And the reason I'm telling you that is to end it by this, is that the first product design was Axl Rose themed on Use Your Illusion 1 of Guns N' Roses, my favorite band of all time. He had a song called Double Talkin' Jive. And geese do what you call double cluck. So I named this shirt with 2 big Canada geese looking at each other, talking smack, Double Cluck and Jive. And I wore it on the shirt on the show, and all of a sudden, here comes the orders. I want that shirt. I want it XL. I want it in long sleeve. I want it in red. And I'm like, holy smokes, this TV deal works for promotion. So that's how the Fowl Life. My theme or my goal is telling you is that we've always been 100% focused on our brands and our partners. We don't hard sell. We don't get on there and Ricky Bobby. The Fowl Life is about the lifestyle and the humility that comes with being American hunter, conservationist, outdoorsman, a provider, if you will. And It's the place we visit. It's the therapy of the soldiers that have been in the blind, people that have lost their short-term memories, double amputees, people that have watched their best friends die in front of them, serving our country from Delta Force to SEAL Team 6 to Rangers to 82nd Airborne. I've hunted and I've trained with them all. So hunting has been able to show me that we can give back. We've hunted with kids out of St. Jude's and Ronald McDonald's house. We've given back to so many different foundations and charities. And that's what the Fowl Life is hanging its hat on, is that the show's not about pulling the trigger and killing a duck. It's about the camaraderie and the socializing and the culture and the aura and the compassion and the pride that goes into it. And when those soldiers' boots hit American dirt again and they're back from theater and back from war of protecting our freedoms, we're able to say, hey, let's go find some solitude in the duck blind or the turkey woods. And that's why the Fowl Life, in my opinion, has been successful, because when you turn it on, and you see a dog bringing back a duck in Oklahoma to a kid that was 5 years cancer-free, that went through hell in St. Jude's, and his mom and dad went through hell being at the Ronald McDonald house, and us being able to say, hey, he loves to hunt. His dad loves to hunt. Well, let's take him on a hunt. That's what the Fowl Life's given myself, my brothers, my family, and now season 14, it blows your mind. But it's not stopping there. Even if I passed away or went away, it's going to continue, because it's a brand now, because we nurtured it. We took care of it, and we wanted it to be something bigger than me or bigger than anything. And nothing's going to be bigger than that idea of being able to be in a duck blind and give back to somebody.
It's a fantastic story. I love it, and congratulations. It's really just great work. If you ever need like a New York City guy to, join you on a hunt, you just let me know. The Provider cookbook. Tell me, what would you, do you want to talk about the new cookbook, American Almond Beef? What's interesting to you that we should tell people about?
The Provider's the mentality, man. It's a word that I still can't believe that we got that one trademarked. And our slogan is finish what you started. And I think that, going back to the beginning of this conversation, my man, is that we go through the motions a lot, I think, especially in conversing like you and I are doing right now. And that's why I love podcasting, because you don't have to be famous to get on Letterman's or Johnny Carson's couch. You can talk to somebody, because everybody has a story. And the Provider is finish what you started. And if you take that pride in harvesting your animal and now butchering it and processing it, here's what you can do with our dry rubs. Our dry rubs are not cutting corners. I spent 10 and a half months going back and forth finding the exact mixes that we wanted for all of our different applications, from vegetables to wild game to domestic. And then the cookbook's 264 pages, 80 recipes that are influences and inspirations from all over the world, from Miss Shelley Wright's sizzling squirrel in Louisiana to Lee Lofton's tomato gravy in Mississippi to Billy Bogey's smothered deer steak in Arkansas. I don't think I've ever invented a recipe. I put my own touch on one, but I wanted to pay homage to the inspirations and influences around this world. I can't tell you how many Argentinian recipes that we have of ducks of our time spent down there, or in Uruguay or Paraguay or Peru. And that this book, I wanted to showcase that all over the world, there's influence in wild game, stories, instruction, how to live off the land, how to garden, how to be a better hunter, how to be a better fisher, how to be a better provider. And that's what the mentality is. It's not saying that you have to be a hunter to be a provider. You can grow a garden. Just know where you can grow. Your kid could be in FFA, Future Farmers of America, or 4-H, and grow an awesome cattle or a pig or a chicken or a sheep and a lamb. And when it's harvested, that kid's going to take pride of, I raised that. And that's what I want to do. That's what I want people to understand, that we want to know where our food comes from, and we want to be the best version of a provider that we possibly can be.
Hey, Chad, just so that I don't forget, let's tell people where the easiest place to find you, the cookbook, the show, the product line. Give me some websites or whatever that people can go to.
Yeah, thank you. Websites are the fowllife.com and the providerlife.com. If you do want to look at our beef, American almond or almond, depending on where you're from, AmericanAlmondBeef.com. You can order right online. I promise you, it's awesome beef. And then our manufacturing company is Banded, BANDED, bandedbrands.com. And then on social media, at the Fowl Life TV and at the Provider Life. And we try to show on social media, how, our lifestyle has humbled. It doesn't really humble us, because I wanted to be humble from the beginning, but it's an honor to be able to wake up and be on this side of the dirt and live off of the land like we do. And the cookbook is available right now on Amazon, where it actually launches on November 9th. So by the time this airs, it might be open to the public, but we're the #1 cookbook on Amazon right now. Wow. And that's just off of our pre-sale. So I think the Provider brand is going to take off. Our dry rubs are going into retail stores all over the country. And you can also get all 10 of our dry rubs singles, or you can buy the ultimate 10-pack at theproviderlife.com right now.
So 2 quick ones for you. The name of the cookbook is?
The Provider.
Perfect. And the dry rubs can be purchased at which site?
Theproviderlife.com.
Perfect. Theproviderlife.com. Yeah, I'm a dry rub type of guy. Wow, what a treat it has been to spend the time with you. I feel, I'm not patting myself, I feel my instinct is good, because there was something inherently interesting about getting together with someone who was so, as I was saying from the outset, so different. And yet at the same time, here's the thing, we're not that different. We both have an appreciation of food, of people, of the value of the table, of getting together, of provide. You should know, by the way, I'm not here to self-promote, but when my wife and I, both working, were raising our kids in the distribution of labor, I took on the cooking. I made my girls breakfast every day. I made the family dinner every night. And at some point, with a professional culinary degree, my wife was like, you ought to write a book. I wrote a cookbook. It's called Short Order Dad, because I would just be banging out meals all the time. So we actually have a ton in common, although I have to say, super impressive, Chad, all the stuff, the packaging, the product, the book, the television show, and most importantly, what you said, kind of the sensibility, the giving, the sustainability, all the things that you're doing. Really, really great. Really great.
Well, thank you, my man. If I had it my way, I would have maybe we can trade cookbooks. I'd love to sign one and send you one of mine. And if you have yours left, I'd love to have a signed copy of yours.
I'm looking at your copy right now. It's up in the corner.
Oh, you got one. Okay, perfect. Well, I would also like to share a hunt with you sometime in northern New York, up around Buffalo somewhere, chasing ducks and geese. And then we'll go down to the city, and I got to see Broadway. I want to go to a Yankees game. That will probably have to do that in the spring or summer. And And then I'd love to go to your favorite Italian places and maybe eat some sushi at Nobu.
You can count me in because that's a very brilliant itinerary right there. I'm with you all the way. And I have been spending my entire life, by the way, at least in and around around the world eating. So yeah, we're gonna do that. And I'm also going to send Justin a message because I'm paying for it. But you got one hat on your site that I'm also want to get my hands on, and I think you're ready to discontinue it. It's the duck head hat. So we'll get that I'll get that into the book package. I'll send whatever the price is because I want to get my hands on a duck head hat too off your site.
No, you don't have to pay for anything. I got you. But yeah, let Justin know what you want and give him your number if you want me to have it and get mine from him. And let's stay in touch. I'd love to hang out.
It's a deal. Really, again, I can't thank you enough, and I can't tell you how genuinely impressed I am with all the stuff that you do, and you keep doing that. And hopefully one day in person we'll be able to break some bread together and have some sushi and some ice-cold sake.
I would love it. Salute to you, my man.
You too, my friend. Thank you for doing it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, there you go. So, and you can see why. I was super impressed with the man's energy. I'm from New York. That guy spoke faster than I did. With his intelligence, with his spirit, with his attitude, with his accomplishments, just all around terrific. Now, again, if you want to find more about CHAD, you can certainly go to the Outdoor Channel and look up the Fowl Life. I'm sure that you can see any one of a number of programs online. You are invited to go to theproviderlife.com. That's theproviderlife.com. And I know I'm going to go there myself and try some of that, his line of rubs. And I'm also interested in checking out his American almond beef, AmericanAlmondBeef.com. And you are going to go to Amazon because I believe today is the launch date. Today is the 10th of November. I think he said it was going to be today. And find his book, which is The Provider Cookbook. So all those pieces are available to get your hands on some of Chad's content, copy, programming, book, product, etc., etc. And again, my thanks to CHAD Belding for hanging, for spending the time. I loved being with him. That is today's program here on All You Can Eat. I will be back next week with more interesting and, of course, delicious things that we can discuss and recommend. In the meantime, my friends, you can see, not see actually, I guess hear the podcasts on iHeartRadio. You can go to Spotify, you can go to Spreaker. And should you need to find me in any way, shape, or form, I really feel like the easiest way to do that is to go to realrobrosenthal.com, where you can find me doing my thing, and at the bottom of the scroll, an easy way to reach me if you have any comments, if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, if you have someone that you want to hear on the All You Can Eat podcast, brought to you by the boys over at, the boys over at the Armed Radio Media Group. Thank you. Ooh. Now, until then, remember, hey, you know what? Before I sign off, let me just say this. I've also written the cookbook. It's called Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. And we're coming into holiday season. So you may want to go to Amazon, pick up a copy of Chad's book, and then grab a copy of Short Order Dad, because I'm going to tell you why. You don't have to take it from me. You can read the reviews. I think they're generally fair. There are plenty of them. And I wrote the book for people who, not just for dads, really for anybody that wanted to kind of up their skills and their game in the kitchen. And I made it fun, and I made it easy, because I got 100 recipes in there, and I'd say 95 of them don't use more than 5 or 6 high-quality ingredients. That's the way I cook. Most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. RealRobRosenthal.com. The podcast, as I mentioned, you can even subscribe for nothing. whether it's going to be Spotify or whether it's going to be iHeartRadio. And until next week, my friends, remember, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.